Look, I'm not saying Captain Jake Morrison was the smartest human in the galaxy. Far from it. The guy once tried to microwave a burrito still wrapped in aluminum foil on a spaceship. But sometimes, and I mean sometimes, being average has its perks. Jake was a salvage pilot, not the glamorous kind you see in holovids, flying through asteroid fields with dramatic music playing. No, Jake was the kind who showed up 3 weeks after everyone else had picked through a wreck, looking for whatever spare parts the vultures missed. It was honest work, boring work. The kind of work where your biggest excitement was finding a functional coffee maker in the cargo bay of a dead freighter. So naturally, when his ship's scanner pinged an energy signature the size of a small moon, Jake assumed it was broken. "Krill, tell me the sensor array isn't having another episode," he called out, not even looking up from his sandwich. Krill, his engineer, scuttled onto the bridge on all 4 arms, his insectoid face doing that thing that Jake had learned meant anxiety, which, to be fair, was Krill's default state. "Captain, I have run the diagnostics 17 times. The readings are accurate. That is the star engine." Jake nearly choked on his sandwich. The star engine? The one from the fairy tales? The make a wormhole anywhere magic box that every species has been looking for since forever? The very same. Commander Vex stomped onto the bridge, her scaled purple skin gleaming under the overhead lights. She was from a warrior species that made Klingons look like kindergarten teachers. "If this is the star engine, we should contact the Galactic Council immediately. This is not salvage. This is history." Jake stood up, brushing crumbs off his jacket. "Vex, my friend, you're absolutely right. We should contact them." He paused. "Right after we take a look." Vex's hand moved to her plasma rifle. "Captain." "Come on, we're already here. What's 5 minutes going to hurt?" Famous last words. The star engine was magnificent. A structure the size of a city, floating in the void, like someone had taken every geometric shape in existence and welded them together with starlight. It was ancient, dormant, and according to every database in known space, completely inaccessible. They docked at what appeared to be a main entrance. Inside, the corridors were pristine, as if the founders had just stepped out for lunch 10,000 years ago and forgot to come back. Everything was labeled in a script that predated most modern languages, but helpful holographic arrows pointed them toward the central chamber. And there it was, the control panel, the thing that had stumped every brilliant mind in the galaxy for millennia. It was disappointingly simple. A smooth black surface with a 6-character input field glowing softly above it. No quantum interfaces, no genetic scanners, no crystalline neural networks, just 6 empty spaces waiting for input. "This is it," Jake said. "This is what stopped everyone?" Kirill was already scanning. "Captain, the access requirements are listed as needing the Founder's key. Every species has attempted to unlock it. The algorithmic collective spent 3 centuries running computational sequences. The Psionic Brotherhood tried mental projection. Yeah, everyone failed, I get it." Jake stepped closer, hands in his pockets. "But what exactly is the Founder's key?" "Unknown. The Founders left no records. They vanished from the galaxy approximately 10,000 standard years ago." Vex was pacing, which was never a good sign. "We should establish a perimeter. When word gets out that humans found this place, every species with a starship will descend on this location." "So dramatic," Jake muttered. But he knew she was right. The star engine was the holy grail of technology. Whoever controlled it could create stable wormholes anywhere in the galaxy. That was the kind of power that started wars. He stared at the 6 empty spaces. 6 characters, that was it. The key to the most advanced piece of technology in known existence was 6 characters long. Has anyone tried just guessing? Krill's translator made a sound like a sigh. "Captain, the probability of randomly guessing a 6-character code from an unknown alien language with an unknown character set is approximately 1 in 8 billion trillion. And that's assuming it's even a linguistic input and not a mathematical or... Right. Stupid question." Jake kept staring at the panel. Something about it nagged at him. It looked so mundane, like a password screen on a cheap datapad. That's when the first ship arrived. Within 6 hours, Jake's quiet little discovery had turned into an interstellar circus. Ships from every major species dropped out of hyperspace like they were late for a sail. The Galactic Council sent an official delegation. Research teams materialized. And with them came the experts. Oh, the experts. Professor Klaxon arrived first, floating in his containment sphere like a brain in a lava lamp. He was a cerebral cortexian, which meant he was literally just a highly evolved brain with delusions of grandeur. "Clearly," he announced in a voice that made Jake want to take a nap out of spite, "the Founder's Key is a multi-dimensional algorithmic sequence. I will have this solved within hours." "Sure you will, Doc," Jake said, leaning against a wall with his arms crossed. Klaxon spent 4 hours inputting equations that would make a mathematician cry. The panel remained stubbornly locked. When his final attempt failed, he actually started sparking. "Impossible! My calculations were perfect!" "Maybe you carried a 2 wrong," Jake suggested helpfully. Next came the Crystalline Collective, a group of sentient rocks that communicated through harmonic frequencies. They believed the key was sonic. For 3 straight hours, they sang at the panel in frequencies that made everyone's teeth hurt. The panel did nothing except possibly judge them. Krill, meanwhile, was having a complete breakdown. He'd set up 17 different workstations and was running every analysis known to engineering. The panel's construction predates modern manufacturing by millennia. The material composition includes elements that shouldn't exist in this dimensional space. The power source is drawing from quantum foam fluctuations in a way that violates 6 different laws of thermodynamics. "But can you open it?" Jake asked. "No!" Commander Vex was handling the military side, which mainly involved stopping different species from fighting each other. Apparently, 3 different empires had ancient prophecies about the star engine, and they were all very upset that their prophecies didn't mention humans being the ones to find it. "Captain Morrison," Vex growled, "the Vortan Empire has deployed a battle fleet. They're claiming salvage rights based on a treaty from 4,000 years ago. Do we have a salvage treaty from 4,000 years ago? No. We have been a spacefaring species for approximately 300 years. That does put us at a disadvantage." More experts arrived. The algorithmic collective brought quantum computers the size of moons. The Psionic Brotherhood tried to telepathically communicate with the panel, which was either very advanced or very stupid, depending on your perspective. A sect of monk engineers attempted to meditate the answer into existence. Everyone failed. Jake watched it all with increasing amusement. These were the smartest beings in the galaxy, the top minds of their respective civilizations, and they were all losing to a locked door. It was like watching a convention of geniuses unable to open a jar of pickles. "Maybe it's retinal scan," suggested a six-eyed biological analyst. "Perhaps a DNA lock calibrated to founder genetics," offered a geneticist covered in tentacles. "Have we considered that it might be a test of worthiness?" pondered a philosopher priest. Jake raised his hand. "Has anyone considered it might just be a password?" The assembled experts turned to look at him. The silence was deafening. Professor Klaxon's sphere rotated in what might have been indignation. "A password? You think the most advanced civilization in galactic history protected their greatest achievement with something as primitive as a password? I mean, maybe?" The laughter was immediate and brutal. Even Krill looked embarrassed for him. Commander Vex actually face-palmed, which was impressive considering she had no face to palm. "Humans," Klaxon said with audible disdain, "always thinking in such linear, simplistic terms. The founders were beyond such crude security measures. This requires sophisticated analysis, quantum-level understanding, perhaps even— Yeah, I get it, I'm dumb. Got it." But Jake kept thinking about it. The panel looked like a password screen. It acted like a password screen. If it walked like a duck and quacked like a duck, maybe it was just a really old, really important duck. The tension was rising. More ships arrived daily. The Galactic Council was in emergency session. Alliances were forming and breaking. Someone tried to blow the panel open, which resulted in their disintegration beam bouncing back and vaporizing their ship. Apparently, the star engine had opinions about vandalism. 3 weeks in, and nobody was any closer to solving it. The greatest minds in the galaxy were stumped by 6 empty spaces on a screen. And Jake couldn't stop thinking. What if the answer was embarrassingly simple? By week 4, people were getting desperate. And when people get desperate, they get creative. And when they get creative around ancient alien technology, they usually get dead. The Vortan Empire tried using a captured dark matter bomb as a persuasion device. The panel absorbed the blast and used the energy to make the entire structure glow brighter. Helpful. A radical sect of techno-cultists tried sacrificing their ship's AI to the panel as an offering. The panel remained unimpressed. The AI was later recovered and filed a formal complaint. Jake was in the cafeteria area they'd set up, eating something that was technically food but tasted like regret, when Krill rushed in on all 4 arms. "Captain, the cerebral cortexians are planning to attempt a forced quantum intrusion. They believe they can hack the panel by existing in multiple probability states simultaneously. Is that going to work? It's going to explode them across 17 dimensions. Should we stop them? I already told them. They called me dimensionally challenged and said I wouldn't understand their advanced physics. Well then." Jake took another bite. "Let's go watch some brains explode." They didn't explode, technically. They just sort of scattered. It took 3 days to reassemble Professor Claxon, and when they did, he was missing memories of how to spell his own name. An improvement, in Jake's opinion. That evening, Jake sat alone in front of the panel. Everyone else was busy with their own theories, their own approaches, their own complicated solutions to what might be a simple problem. He stared at those 6 empty spaces. "All right," he said to the panel, "let's think about this. You're 10,000 years old, your creators are long gone, but you're still here, still working, still locked. Why?" The panel, unsurprisingly, didn't answer. "If I was building the most important thing in the galaxy, what would I do?" Jake drummed his fingers on his knee. "I'd want to protect it, but I'd also want it to be used eventually. That's the whole point, right? You don't build a wormhole generator just to look pretty." He thought about his own life, his own technology. How many times had he been locked out of his own accounts because he forgot passwords? How many times had he reset security codes because the old ones were too complicated? What if, he said slowly, the founders had the same problem? Commander Vex found him an hour later, still sitting there. "Captain, the Galactic Council is demanding we surrender the engine to neutral oversight. 3 more fleets have arrived. The situation is becoming untenable." "Vex, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What's your password for your personal datapad?" Vex looked confused. "It's a 16-digit alphanumeric sequence generated by quantum randomization protocols and changed every 3 days." "Of course it is." Jake stood up. "And how many times have you been locked out?" 7 times this month." "Exactly." He turned to face the panel again. Everyone's treating this like it's some impossible puzzle, but what if it's not? What if the founders were just people? Advanced people, sure, but still people. And people are lazy. "Captain, are you suggesting—" "I'm suggesting we let me try the dumbest possible solution." Word spread fast. By the time Jake formally requested access to attempt his method, half the galaxy was watching. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Scientists argued, military commanders positioned assets, betting pools formed. The consensus was clear. Letting the human try was pointless, but at least it would be entertaining when he failed. Krill was frantically running calculations. "Captain, I must advise against this. The probability of success is 0.000, something ridiculous. I know." Jake cracked his knuckles. "But here's the thing. Every single attempt so far has been complicated, advanced, sophisticated. What if that's the problem? What if everyone's been overthinking this for 10,000 years? That would be statistically improbable to the point of... Yeah, but humanity didn't get into space by being statistically probable. We got here by being too dumb to know when to quit." Commander Vex actually smiled at that. "Human persistence. It's either your greatest strength or your most annoying quality. Why not both?" The assembled aliens watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright mockery. Professor Claxon, recently reassembled and still missing some memories, floated forward. Very well, human. Show us your primitive solution. We could all use a laugh. Jake approached the panel, 6 empty spaces, 6 characters that stood between humanity and legend. All right, he muttered. Let's see if the founders appreciated irony. Jake stood before the panel, very aware that approximately 47 different species were watching him, most of them expecting him to fail spectacularly. No pressure. Okay, he said to himself. Think like someone who doesn't want to think too hard. He reached out and touched the first input space. The panel responded, bringing up a holographic keyboard with standard galactic common characters. At least, that was helpful. First attempt, PASSWD. Because if you're going to be lazy about a password, might as well drop the vowels to feel clever about it. Nothing. The panel blinked once and cleared the input. Well, that would have been too easy, Jake muttered. Behind him, Krill was having a moment. Captain, I should mention that according to my calculations, we have approximately 15 attempts before the panel initiates some kind of security protocol. Krill, buddy, not helping. Second attempt, ACCESS, nice and simple. The kind of thing you'd use if you wanted people to eventually figure it out. The panel blinked, cleared. Okay, not that either. Commander Vex stepped closer. Captain, perhaps we should allow the experts to… Vex, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but give me a minute. Jake stepped back, studying the panel. There had to be something he was missing. Some clue, some hint. Then he noticed it. Carved into the frame around the panel, almost hidden by millennia of dust, were symbols. Simple pictographs. He'd seen them before but dismissed them as decoration. One looked like a door. Another looked like a figure. Another looked like a gesture, hands extended. Krill, can you read these? The engineer scuttled over, his optical sensors adjusting. These are proto-linguistic symbols, Captain. Predating modern writing systems. This one means barrier or entrance. This one means individual or person. This one is more complex. It appears to mean request or asking. A person asking to enter, Jake said slowly, like asking permission. That is one interpretation. Jake turned back to the panel. A person requesting entrance. How do you request entrance? You knock, you announce yourself, you ask. Third attempt. UNLOCK. Nothing. Damn it! Jake ran a hand through his hair. The assembled crowd was getting restless. Someone in the back was already making jokes about human intelligence. Professor Claxon was audibly sighing, which was impressive for a being without lungs. Captain, perhaps we should take a break, Krill suggested nervously. Recalculate our approach. Run some linguistic analyses. No, hang on. I'm missing something obvious. Jake stared at the symbols again, asking, requesting, how do you request something? And then it hit him. His grandmother, Old Earth. She used to say that the magic word was the one people forgot most often, the simplest courtesy, the thing you teach kids before anything else. You've got to be kidding me, Jake whispered. Captain? Jake reached for the panel one more time. This was either going to be brilliant or the most embarrassing moment of his life. Possibly both. PLEASE. He pressed confirm. For a long moment, nothing happened. The assembled crowd started murmuring. Someone laughed. Professor Claxon began a sentence that probably started with, "As I predicted," or something equally insufferable. Then the panel turned green. Every light in the star engine blazed to life. The hum of power that had been dormant for 10,000 years suddenly filled the air like a symphony. Holographic displays erupted from every surface. The 6 input spaces dissolved, replaced by an interface so intuitive that Jake immediately understood how to use it. And in the center of the chamber, a message appeared in perfect, modern, standard galactic common. Welcome! Access granted. You have discovered the Founder's universal constant. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space. Then everyone started screaming. Krill fell over backward, all 4 arms flailing. Commander Vex's jaw literally dropped open, revealing 3 rows of serrated teeth. Professor Claxon's containment sphere started spinning like a dropped coin. Jake just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching the chaos unfold. Please, he said to no one in particular. The password was please. The holographic message expanded, and a new text began scrolling. Congratulations to the species that understood simplicity. The founder's key was never meant to be complex. We designed this test to identify a civilization that valued accessibility over obscurity, courtesy over conquest, and politeness over power. Every advanced species before you failed because they could not imagine that something this important could be this simple. You asked nicely. That is all we ever wanted, is all. Someone in the crowd fainted. It might have been one of the crystalline collective, hard to tell with rocks. Jake turned to find every eye, sensor, and optical organ pointed at him. The human. The salvage pilot who showed up in a ship held together with duct tape and optimism. The guy who'd solved the greatest mystery in galactic history by remembering his manners. So, he said into the stunned silence, does this mean I get to keep it, or... That's when the real pandemonium started. The next hour was absolute chaos, and Jake was living for every second of it. Professor Claxon literally exploded, just fully detonated in his containment sphere like a firework made of smugness and miscalculation. Apparently, the shock of being wrong after several thousand years of being right was too much for his cerebral cortex. His backup body was already being printed somewhere, but Jake hoped it would take a while. The silence was nice. The algorithmic collective representatives were rebooting in a corner, their quantum processors unable to handle the logical paradox of the answer was simple. One of them kept repeating, does not compute, like a broken toy, which was both sad and hilarious. Commander Vex just sat down, didn't say anything, just sat down on the floor and stared at the active panel like it had personally betrayed her. 10,000 years, she finally said. 10,000 years of galactic mystery, solved by manners. Hey, my mom raised me right, Jake said with a shrug. Yril was experiencing what could only be described as an existential crisis. All four of his arms were moving independently, one taking notes, one running calculations, one gesturing wildly, and one apparently just along for the ride. This changes everything. Every assumption about the founders, about ancient technology, about security protocols. Krill, buddy, breathe! Well, do whatever your species does instead of breathing. The star engine's main interface was now fully active, and it was remarkable. Holographic displays showed a network of dormant wormhole gates scattered across the galaxy. System diagnostics indicated everything was in perfect working order, despite millennia of neglect. And the user interface? Intuitive as hell. Big friendly buttons, clear labels, even a help menu. The founders had built the most advanced piece of technology in galactic history and made it user-friendly. Jake was falling in love with people he'd never meet. A new holographic message materialized in the center of the chamber. It appeared to be a recorded greeting, because suddenly Jake was face to face with a founder. They looked disappointingly normal, humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Could have passed for human with a bit of makeup. The figure smiled warmly. Hello, whoever you are. If you're seeing this, you've passed our test. Congratulations. The hologram gestured around. We are, or were, depending on when you're watching this, the founders. We built the star engine as a gift for the galaxy, a way to bring civilizations together, to make the vast distances of space feel smaller, to foster cooperation instead of isolation. The hologram paused, as if collecting thoughts. But we had a problem. We knew that power like this would be coveted, fought over, used as a weapon. We needed to ensure that whoever gained access would be worthy of that responsibility. Jake glanced around. Every species representative was watching with rapt attention, even the ones who'd been mocking him 5 minutes ago. So we designed a test, the founder continued. Not of intelligence, not of strength, not of technological sophistication. Those qualities don't determine wisdom. No, we needed something more fundamental, something universal. The hologram smiled wider. We chose politeness, the simple act of asking nicely, of requesting instead of demanding, of recognizing that even with all the power in the universe, courtesy matters. The word please exists in some form in nearly every developing language we studied. It's a constant, a universal expression of respect. Kirill was frantically recording every word. This is incredible. They weaponized etiquette. Every advanced civilization that attempted to access this engine failed because they approached it as a problem to be solved through force or intellect, the founder said. They tried to crack codes, bypass security, impose their will. But the answer was never about being smart enough or strong enough. It was about being kind enough to ask. The hologram's expression turned more serious. To whoever unlocked this, you now have access to technology that can reshape galactic civilization. Use it wisely. Use it fairly. And most importantly, use it with the same courtesy that granted you access. The Star Engine responds to all commands the same way it responds to the initial password. Ask nicely, and it will help you. Demand, and it will refuse. With that, the hologram faded, leaving behind an active, fully functional, impossibly advanced piece of technology that would now respond to humanity's requests. As long as they said please. Commander Vex finally stood up. Captain Morrison, do you understand what this means? Humanity now has shared access to the most powerful transportation network in the galaxy. Shared access? Jake raised an eyebrow. The engine is granting access to your species as the ones who solved the puzzle, but it's clearly designed for galactic use. This will need to be negotiated through the Council. Vex, you're thinking too hard again. A delegation from the Galactic Council was already forming, representatives from a dozen species approaching with various expressions of shock, anger, and grudging respect. Jake could see the political nightmare forming before his eyes. Treaties to be written, agreements to be hammered out, committees to be formed. Captain Morrison, said the council speaker, a dignified being who looked like someone had given an octopus a law degree. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we must discuss the implications of this discovery and establish proper protocols for— Please shut up, Jake said. The Star Engine immediately projected a holographic, mute symbol over the speaker, who kept talking, but no sound came out. The being looked absolutely outraged. Jake grinned. Oh, I'm going to have so much fun with this. 3 months later, Jake Morrison was the most famous human in the galaxy, and he absolutely hated it. The media coverage was relentless. Human solves millennial mystery with basic manners was a popular headline. So was Galaxy's smartest minds outsmarted by please. His personal favorite was local salvage pilot ruins everyone's day by being polite. Interview requests came from every major news network in known space. Publishers wanted book deals. The Galactic Historical Society wanted to put his dirty jacket in a museum. Someone started a religion based on the concept of asking nicely, which Jake found both flattering and deeply concerning. He declined everything. Well, almost everything. He did accept one invitation to speak at a prestigious galactic summit on ancient technology, mostly because they offered an open bar. His speech lasted 3 minutes. Jake Morrison, I found the thing. The password was, please, always try being polite before you try being complicated. Thank you. Then he left. The summit continued for 3 more days without him, mostly consisting of academics arguing about whether Jake's solution was replicable methodology or dumb luck. The consensus was both. Humanity's reputation in the galactic community underwent a fascinating transformation. They went from those new guys with the weird obsession with coffee to the species that solved the unsolvable by using kindergarten manners. It was unclear if this was an upgrade. The Star Engine itself became a shared resource, just as the founders intended. The Galactic Council established protocols for its use, but the engine had its own ideas about how things should work. It turned out that the system had a built-in fairness algorithm. Try to monopolize the wormhole network? The engine would lock you out until you apologized. Attempt to weaponize the technology? Instant ban, cut in line ahead of a medical transport? The engine would make you wait double the time. It was the most passive-aggressive piece of ancient technology ever created, and Jake respected that. Krill published his book, Why Simple Solutions Terrify Advanced Civilizations, and it became an instant bestseller. He dedicated it to Captain Morrison, who taught me that sometimes the answer is just the answer. The book's main argument was that advanced civilizations become so accustomed to complex problems that they develop blind spots for simple solutions. Critics called it obvious. Krill called that ironic. Commander Vex received a commendation from her homeworld for her role in the discovery. She grudgingly admitted, in an official military report, that humans possess certain qualities that, while initially appearing to be deficiencies, occasionally prove strategically advantageous. In Vex's language, that was basically a declaration of love. The cerebral cortexians, after Professor Claxon was reassembled with most of his memories intact, issued a formal statement acknowledging that perhaps intelligence alone is insufficient for certain challenges. It was the closest they'd ever come to admitting they were wrong about something. Claxon himself retired to teach, and rumor had it he started every class with, "Before we discuss advanced theory, let's review basic courtesy." Hi. Jake went back to salvage work. The fame and glory were nice, sure, but someone had to keep finding broken ships and stripping them for parts. It was honest work. Simple work. His ship, now christened the Please and Thank You by Krill without Jake's permission, cruised through a quiet sector looking for derelict vessels. The crew had settled back into their routine. Krill worried about everything. Vex kept the ship running with military precision, and Jake drank coffee and made sarcastic comments. "Captain," Krill called from the sensor station, "I'm detecting another ancient structure, similar energy signature to the star engine." Jake sighed. "Of course there is." They approached carefully. This one was smaller, more compact, but clearly built by the same civilization. And at its center, inevitably, was another access panel. This one had a 7-character input field. "Absolutely not," Jake said immediately. "Captain, this could be another significant discovery," Krill protested. "Krill, my friend, I've had enough significant discoveries for one lifetime." But Jake was already walking toward the panel, because curiosity was humanity's other defining trait besides politeness. He studied the panel for a moment, then reached out and typed without hesitation. THANKS. The panel turned green immediately. The structure powered up, holographic displays activated, showing schematics for what appeared to be a galaxy-wide communication network. Another recorded message from the founders appeared. "Oh good, you found the second one. We're starting to like you guys." Jake turned to his crew. "I'm not telling anyone about this one." "Captain, we have a responsibility to—" "Nope, not doing it. I'm not spending another 3 months being poked and prodded by scientists who want to study how I use basic manners. This one's staying secret." Vex actually looked amused. "The Galactic Council will eventually find out." "Let them. By then, we'll be on the other side of the galaxy." Jake headed back to the bridge. "Krill, copy the data from this thing. Vex, prep for departure. I suddenly have an overwhelming urge to be anywhere else." As they left, Jake couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was full of ancient mysteries, impossible puzzles, and legendary technologies. And apparently, the secret to all of them was just being a decent person. His communicator buzzed. Another interview request. This one from a documentary crew wanting to follow him around for 6 months. "Please leave me alone," Jake muttered, deleting the message. Somewhere in the cosmos, every piece of founder technology registered the request and made a note. Jake Morrison had earned some peace and quiet. The universe could wait. 3 weeks later, another ancient facility was discovered. This one had an access panel with 8 input fields. The Galactic Council spent 2 years trying to crack it. An anonymous tip suggested they try "thank you" plus a space. It worked. Nobody could prove it was Jake, but everyone knew. Humanity's reputation was secure, the species that solved impossible problems by remembering what their parents taught them. It wasn't the legacy anyone expected, but it was the one they got. And honestly, Jake thought it could be worse. At least they weren't known as those idiots who tried to microwave a burrito in aluminum foil. He was never living that one down.